When Garrick met Onyx. Garrick Landau tapped his right pointer finger on his bow in anticipation of the game that would soon appear. The middle-aged human mercenary had been taught by his uncle Levain to track and hunt, and by his elven friend Delavan to use arrow and bow. Looking at the grass in front of him and the slightly broken tree limbs a bit further on, Garrick surmised that whatever animal he had come upon was concealed in a small ditch covered by 2 trees. Whether it had been driven there by natural forces or by the ravings of a drunken troll, Garrick couldn't know, and frankly, he didn't care. Nor did he care whether the inhabitant was as small as a wild rabbit or as big as the aforementioned troll. His supply of dried meat was waning. Moving forward in his deerskin boots, Garrick brushed his shoulder-length, dark brown hair to the side and wiped his tanned cheeks clear of sweat. He had hunted game, all game to be found in the land of Denaria, since the days his uncle had called him young pup, but something seemed off. To reassure himself, he patted the short sword at his side, and then checked his surroundings one last time to get the lay of the land. If this deer, or large rabbit, or whatever it was, scampered, he would need to know what might obstruct his line of fire. Suddenly he heard a thump. As he looked out towards the fallen trees, Garrick knelt down and grabbed an arrow from his quiver. He had 5, plenty to drop whatever was ahead of him. Even so, as he saw his quarry, he sighed and returned the arrow to the quiver. What lay ahead of him wasn't game. Well, that wasn't all true. There was a rabbit, but its lifeless body was held cradled in the jaws of a black wolf. Garrick was running out of food, but he wasn't so desperate as to kill a wolf. The beast had as much right to the other animals of the forest as he did. But more than that, there was something special about the wolf, something majestic. It took him by surprise. Rising slowly, Garrick got to his feet and moved 2 steps forward to get a better look at the beast. However, his curiosity had gotten the better of him. The wolf sniffed the air twice, then turned his head and looked right at Garrick. Dropping the rabbit, the wolf growled menacingly at him. Sharp fangs bared, the hair on his back raised, he now took a few steps towards the hunter. In an instant, Garrick had an arrow nocked and pointed squarely at the black beauty. Terrifying as the wolf was in that moment, that feeling of majesty was still about him. The wind swayed the leaves as the trees stood firmly. Then, as if from some wizard's spell, the wolf bolted forward, moving faster than any he'd ever seen. The animal's beauty and majesty fled from Garrick's mind. He knew it was now him or it, and with a smooth motion, the archer loosed his arrow. With a thud, the silver tip struck the wolf and struck true. The wolf jerked back and yelped as it fell. Garrick knocked another arrow as he watched his adversary stagger to its feet and take a step forward, growling and gnashing its teeth. However, the black wolf's hackles fell and it slumped to the ground again, unmoving. Garrick shouldered his bow and stepped forward with short sword firmly in hand, ready for the killing stroke. He held no malice for the wolf, not in action nor in thought. It was simply kill or be killed, and the forest never chooses sides. Looking down at his kill, Garrick noticed that the wolf was still alive. What he thought was a he from farther away was actually a she, and her eyes were fixed upon him. Those eyes spoke to him, not with words, but with feeling and understanding. It was then he knew. She was a mystic wolf. Garrick patted her head as she closed her eyes for the last time and gave one final howl. A howl that Garrick would never forget. Taking the arrow from the beast's heart was one of the most sobering experiences of his life. He could tell that she was young. Not a pup by any means, but she hadn't been mature for very long. Then a thought hit him, almost as if it had been sent by a spirit. A spirit sent from Elion, the god of creation perhaps, or the spirit of the wolf whose life he'd just taken. Garrick crept to the den. He looked down at the dead rabbit at the opening of the dwelling. Then he heard something, a soft cry. Over and over it came. Stepping into the den, he looked down and what he saw was truly poetry to his soul. The cries continued as a wolf pup eyed him. Then suddenly it howled as only small wolf pups do. It was precious but fierce. Picking up the black mystic wolf pup, Garrick saw that he had been right this time. He was indeed a he, and as blood trickled down the human's finger, the pup showed he was already possessed of strength and a set of sharp teeth. Upon exiting the den, Garrick looked up to the sky and closed his eyes. He had robbed the wolf of raising her pup, but he would step up now. Grabbing the rabbit from the leaf-strewn floor, he cleaned and cooked it. As the pup ate its fill, Garrick placed his mother inside the den and covered the opening. It was to be her resting place forever, and her son would be with Garrick until he placed him in the ground as well. However, that wouldn't be for a long time yet, he thought as he sat down, because the pup he would name Onyx crept over to him and lovingly nestled into his lap.